A runner once somewhere said, running is a mental sport and we are all insane. Let's look at how much truth or untruth there is in that statement once we get into demystifying this whole sport called running. Basically, there are two kinds of running. One is where you run shorter distances, like maybe 5 to 6 kilometers, 3-4 times in a week, and then that forms a part of your fitness regime. It's not something totally impossible. It's something that most of us would very easily do, either outdoors or on a treadmill. That's one kind of running. Now the other kind of running is endurance or marathon running. The insanity part in that quote is true for both kinds of running in various degrees. I personally think you need to be a little bit insane to want to go out and run a marathon, but we'll come to that later. Talking about running, building running as a fitness habit. So let's just think, you are looking out of your balcony one fine morning and you see this bunch of people sweating it out, running uphill or whatever, and hey, they actually seem to be enjoying it despite panting, despite their wet clothes soaked in perspiration. Why? Why is that? So for a runner, basically two kinds of people: the non-runners, for purposes of brevity let's just call them spectators, and the runners. Now a few years ago, I was one of the spectators myself. I was in my early 40s and I was, well, the typical IT slave. I was working for an IT services company, putting in 9+ hours of work every day, coming back home deadbeat. Basically, every time someone questioned, you love the outdoors so much, why don't you go out, take a walk? So on. I'd say, where's the time? The weekends were reserved for, family and my just relaxing, because, a five-day week is with 9+ hours just gets to you. That's when we moved somewhere close to a beautiful park, and I would stare wistfully out of the window practically every day and think, God, look at those trees, look at the greenery there. I love the outdoors so much. Why am I sitting here admiring this from a distance? And occasionally I would kind of haul myself out of bed a little early in the morning, take a stroll in the park, as usual be amazed at whatever nature's created, and come back home and say, okay, I'm going to make a habit of this, but never happened. So on one of these occasional forays into that park, I saw a bunch of people running in yellow t-shirts. On the back it said Hyderabad runners. And you know how it is when you go to the park and then you see this, you smile, you wave, and then I was wondering, what is this whole thing about? There were just about 4 or 5 people at that point of time doing the rounds of KVR Park, that's where I live, and just wondered, but never got any further than that. Then a close friend told me about the Hyderabad runners. He'd gone and joined them, and then he'd actually begun to enjoy running. So I don't know what it was, but something triggered, and it was really another couple of months before I woke up an hour early and started going to the park, somewhat regular basis, putting in an hour of walking. Sometimes when no one was looking, I was so conscious, I would run about 100 meters to see whether I could actually do it. Didn't seem all that impossible, because from the 100 I went to 200 meters. But then if I saw someone come in front of me, I'd stop immediately, because I was very, very conscious I'd never run. I was never a sports person in my entire life. I would think up any excuse to miss PT in school, and if the PT mistress was absent, I was the happiest, because it meant I got this extra hour to sit with my nose buried in a book. Basically, I was a bookworm and I would always be caught with my nose buried. I would pick up any excuse to miss PT, and I was my involvement, sum total involvement with sport of any kind, was to stand on the sidelines and cheer for my class fellows on sports day, clapping when it was one of my friends who went up there to receive a medal or a cup or whatever, and limited to either watching it, the occasional cricket match live sometimes, or watching it on TV, tennis. Then we had the Asian Games in 1982, it was just limited to that. That is the sum total of my involvement with sport of any kind. Not that I didn't follow sport, but that was the extent of my involvement. And shortly after that, when I started doing this run, walk routine, I had of course heard about all the myths around running, how it's so bad for your knees, your knees start to wear out and all of that. And here I was in my early 40s trying to attempt something which I'd never done before in my life. But when I started that, and then the motivation started coming in from all quarters. This friend of mine who took to running and the Hyderabad runners in the park would take me, come on, go on, you can do it. Another 100 meters, go on, do it. And that's how it happened. And one thing led to another, and before I knew it, some 3-4 months down the line, I signed up for my first ever 10K run on Necklace Road, Tangbanda circuit. And I think that was the defining moment, because once I completed that 10K run, there were times when I felt like giving up on that first ever 10K run, somewhere at 7.5, something in me snapped. And I said, this is insane, what am I doing here? And there was a voice in my head that went, come on woman, you've given birth to 2 8-pound children, you can do it. And that's what I did, and somehow I pushed myself to complete that first ever 10K run. And then from there it was another 10K run, and shortly after that I signed up for my first ever half marathon in Pondicherry. And a few months down the line, before I knew it, I'd added the word marathoner somewhere after my name. Now that's how you start with incorporating running as a part of your fitness. Now we come to the other part, the more difficult part, the mental part, which is endurance or marathon running. Now the word marathon means a distance of 42.2 kilometers or 26 miles. I don't know how many of you are aware of that. And a half marathon is exactly half that distance, which is 21.1 kilometers. There's a rather sad legend associated with how the word actually evolved. The distance between Marathon village in Greece and Athens is 42.2 kilometers, and that is the internationally accepted standard for marathons across the world today. And the legend goes that the messenger ran from Marathon to Athens to tell the king about the Greeks' victory over Persians, and then he collapsed and died. That's the legend. Now coming back to marathon running, Emil Zatopek, he was a Czech-born marathon runner, I think 1952 Helsinki, I'm not sure, 1952 Helsinki Olympics gold medalist, said, if you want to run a mile. If you want to discover life, run a marathon. I think he couldn't have put it better. There are marathons galore happening all over the world, and not every runner is a marathon runner. Vice versa, it's true, every marathoner is a runner, but not every runner is a marathon runner, but it's every runner's dream to eventually run a marathon someday. So you start with half and move on to the full and so on. But that experience, I don't even know if I can put it in words, but I will try. In 2013, I ran my first marathon, and I was at the start line where there were 11,000 runners, and I was standing there thinking to myself, what am I doing here? All these guys look like they've been hewn out of blocks of iron. Everybody looked so fit. They were going through all these contortions and warm-ups and all that, and I was just standing there wringing my hands and wondering what made me come miles away from home, and this middle-aged mother of two pretending to be some kind of an international athlete, when in reality that's not true at all. And the gun went off and we started. So it wasn't hard to get to kilometer 15 or 16 or whatever. It was blazing hot. And in running parlance, we have a phrase called hitting the wall, which means that you feel like your legs have turned to lead basically, you can't go on further. And somewhere, maybe at kilometer 38, I somehow managed to push myself till there. And I felt I'd hit the wall. I said, I'm going to stop, I'll get into the sweep bus and I just go. I'm not going to be able to go on any further. So the motivation factor again. This woman steps out. She was one of the spectators along the way, cheering. This woman steps out, holding a placard that went, "You run better than our government." So that was all the motivation I needed to push myself for another 2 kilometers. And at 40, I knew I had just another 2 kilometers to go, and then the wall hit me once again. I said, no, that's the hardest part. The first 5% and the last 5% of a marathon are the toughest. The in-betweens just go by. So another woman steps out saying, another placard, "Your legs still look great. Go, go, go." So, and I, before I knew it, crossed the finish line. And the beauty of a marathon is there are no winners, there are no losers. It's completely non-competitive. Every finisher is a winner. Once you cross that finish line, you have the same medal as the Kenyan or the Ethiopian guy who's finished in 2 hours, 20 minutes or whatever, who's finished the full marathon. He's wearing the same medal around his neck. You're wearing the same medal around the neck. It's a great equalizer in that sense of the word. There is no other feeling that once you cross that finish line, you just have to experience it. So that's the philosophy of a marathon. There are no winners, there are no losers. Anybody who completes that distance in that fixed amount of time is a winner. And with this simple premise, we have our very own organization in the city of Hyderabad. I don't know if you've heard about it, but it's called Hyderabad Runners, and we've built little running communities all over the city, blocks of apartments, gated communities. They have running groups which are 150, 200 strong right now. And we've also given the city its first city marathon, the Hyderabad Marathon, which is held in August every year. And same again, going by the philosophy of the marathons being very unique, equalizer, and we have this group which is as diverse as we can get. People from every strata of society run today. Anil Ambani runs. N. Chandrasekharan of TCS is a marathon runner. At the other end of the spectrum, we have Arun Bharadwaj, who's a clerk in the, Public Service Commission in Delhi, and he's the first Indian to have completed the Badwater Ultra Marathon, which is an endurance race held over 2 days in Death Valley, California, where the temperature only goes up to about 45 degrees centigrade. And we have Ram Singh Yadav, who qualified for the 2012 London Olympics by finishing the Mumbai Marathon in 2 hours and 19 minutes, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, that was a qualifier. You'd be forgiven for not knowing the last 2 names. So this is the beauty of the marathon. And once you start to run, you just have to look around you. I once saw this visually impaired runner being led by her companion. They had a rope tied between their wrists. What more do you need? So we at Hyderabad Runners, while striving to make running, because of its simplicity and accessibility, the most preferred form of fitness. Simple, why? Because you don't need expensive gym subscriptions. All you need is a pair of good running shoes for you to get started. Wake up at 5 o'clock, hit the street, it's all yours, you will not see traffic. Go to a nearby park, road's yours. You rule the road for that 1 hour or 2 hours that you are on the road or the park, wherever you are. So it's basically a form of fitness that's accessible to all, and that's what we've been striving to do. And to an extent, I think we succeeded, because 10 years ago, when Hyderabad Runners started, it was just 5 people doing the rounds of KVR Park. And then today, we are 4,000 strong. So, and we are completely volunteer driven and non-profit. How do we do it? It's because you want to give back to the running community. I may be running this Sunday. Next Sunday, I may not feel well enough to run. I will still get up, go stand on the sidelines and hand out water, electrolyte, whatever to my fellow runners. You want to give back. Running makes you want to do that. All this can be completely, I think, attributed to its accessibility, the simplicity, and the fact that it's a completely non-competitive kind of sport. So what basically began with 5 people trying to promote a relatively new form of fitness, running, is now, I think, it wouldn't be untruthful of me to say that it's evolved into a movement. Running has come into its own in India. Every city in India now wants to have its very own marathon. Tier 2 cities like Nagpur, Bhubaneswar, Vizag, all these cities are either planning or they've already had the first version of the Hyderabad Marathon. And not unlike how the Hyderabad runners evolved over the years, I did too, from a spectator to a runner. Thank you.